A president hits the big screen, a race redefines speed, steam powers Western expansion, denim becomes a fashion staple, and a condiment gets its American introduction. Welcome to This Week, Back Then, a weekly video series dedicated to innovations that have shaped our lives today. I'm your host, Mike. Let's dive into This Week, Back Then for the second week of May. May 12th, 1903. President Theodore Roosevelt arrived in San Francisco. His visit was more than ceremonial. It marked the first time a sitting president was recorded on moving film. For citizens used to still portraits and newspaper sketches, seeing Roosevelt in motion made the president feel human, even personal. The film was brief, but its impact was lasting. It began a new era of political communication through images. And it reminds us that sometimes the story isn't just who leads, but how we see them. On May 13, 1950, Silverstone Circuit hosted the first Formula One World Championship race. Nino Farina took the win in an Alfa Romeo that was as much science project as speed machine. But the race was more than a competition. It was a turning point. Mechanics, engineers, and drivers, many just years removed from wartime factories, were now building a new global sport. It was technology. It was courage. It was humanity in the pursuit of speed. And it laid the foundation for the innovation arms race that still defines motorsport today. In May of 1830, a crate arrived at the Charleston docks, and inside it, a machine that would change American travel forever, the best friend of Charleston. Built in New York and shipped south in parts, it became the first steam locomotive built in the U.S. specifically for passenger service. By summer, engineers had it assembled and ready to roll. And on Christmas Day, 1830, it did just that, hitting 20 miles per hour and blowing minds. Horses couldn't compete, and suddenly, time and distance started shrinking. Sure, it exploded just 6 months later. Safety valve failed, but that didn't derail its legacy. They rebuilt it, named it Phoenix, and steam rail took off. It paved the way for everything from subways to shipping hubs. On May 20th, 1873, Levi Strauss and Jacob Davis received a U.S. patent for riveted denim pants. Their invention? The first pair of blue jeans, tough enough for miners, smart enough for the marketplace. The rivets reinforced stress points, making them the go-to garment for workers across the American West. But blue jeans didn't stay underground. They became a global icon, worn by rebels, movie stars, and everyday folks alike. What started as functional fashion became a symbol of durability, individuality, and democratic style. And it all began with two men solving a very practical problem with fabric and a little metal. May 14, 1846. This date marks the passing of an unsung hero of early American science and medicine, Dr. James Mies. In a time when doctors were still debating whether hand-washing mattered, Mies was advocating for public health and contributing to some of the earliest American medical literature. But he wasn't just a physician. He was a full-blown polymath. As a horticulturist, Mies made culinary history in 1812 by publishing the first known recipe for tomato ketchup in the United States. His version included tomatoes and brandy, but skipped vinegar and sugar. Back then, people still called tomatoes love apples and thought they might be poisonous. After Mies, tomato-based ketchups began popping up across Europe and America, often with ingredients like oysters or anchovies, making his recipe one of the first steps toward the condiment we all know and squeeze today. The innovations we've explored today remind us that progress comes from questioning, experimenting, and improving. At Faithful Supply, we're proud to carry that legacy forward, offering high-quality janitorial and breakroom paper products with innovative sourcing to keep our prices low. Join us next week for another fascinating episode of This Week, Back Then, and the innovations that influence our lives today. Until then, I'm Mike, reminding you, behind every simple convenience lies an extraordinary story of human ingenuity.